Story 1. Am I the a-hole for leaving my son's wedding after he denied his stepmom a mother-son dance? My son, Jordan, is 27. His stepmom, Natalie, came into his life when he was 16. His mom had passed away when he was 13. Jordan never really considered Natalie as his mom. He refused to let her get close and shut down every attempt to have a close relationship. He even moved in with his aunt months after Natalie and I got married. As years went by, they started reconciling and seeing each other more often. He invited us to his wedding, which took place days ago. We got there and the atmosphere was great, until later when I found out that Jordan had denied Natalie a mother-son dance and instead chose his aunt to dance with him. Natalie told me this minutes later and I couldn't help feeling irritated and quite upset. I decided to get up and leave, and we both left. I got calls from my family after they saw me leave, and Jordan called later and I told him why I did it. He got mad and said it was his wedding and that his aunt is basically a mother to him, and said that Natalie shouldn't expect special treatment. I said it's not special treatment, but a tradition. Besides that, he hurt her feelings for no reason other than for the sake of being malicious. He got offended and accused me of ruining his day and causing a scene. Now the family sided with him and said I shouldn't have left no matter what. Honestly, it sounds like there are just kind of more issues at play here. Like, there is some reason why Jordan has never really connected with his stepmom, Natalie, losing his mother and stuff at that age, and then, connecting with his aunt and feeling like she is a mother figure. And I think that's his right, he can't help who he necessarily connects with. And I don't think that he should be bound by the traditions of a wedding. Traditions start somewhere and they can end somewhere. You don't have to have them. I do think it seems still a little bit mean on Jordan's part. I don't think that Jordan sounds completely blameless, maybe not making any attempts, but I don't know what that relationship was like or what Natalie was like or any of this stuff. There's so much at play here. I can't fully judge him for that. It seems a little bit mean, and I guess I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing in the world that you left like that, but anyway, I don't necessarily think that it was the worst thing in the world, but I think it's maybe a little much to just outright leave instead of having a talk with him or something in the moment. So I'd say you're at least a little bit of an a-hole, but I don't know. There's too much going on to say. Story 2. Evil stepmother wants my baby. Okay. For some background, I'm 29 female, English, and I live in Italy with my fiance, 37 male, Marco, Italian, and our daughter, 5 months old, Willow. I moved to Italy after graduating medical school, where I met Marco, and now I'm a resident in one of the hospitals. My father is a crap dad, left my mom and me, and has been very inconsistent. He married Tammy when I was young, and she has never liked me, and she was also never able to have kids. So when I gave birth, my mom's side of the family came over to visit and meet Willow and look after both of us. Nothing from my dad or Tammy. So 2 weeks ago, they turned up unannounced, claiming to be in the area on holiday and wanted to meet Willow. She was getting a bit fussy and her combination fed, but as I was home, I grabbed a cover and let her latch onto me. Tammy says the breastfeeding will have to stop soon. I'm confused and asked her why, and she said it couldn't be kept up when Willow is with them. Now I'm even more confused, and I asked what she's on about. She shows me photos of a baby room and says that we should split custody of Willow and not to worry, and she has everything set up already. I just stared at her, but she carries on, claiming that the age gap between myself and Marco is unhealthy for a child to grow up with, saying it was obvious I needed help, and she was happy to, and mostly that I was obviously more bothered about working than staying home with my baby, so I should just let her have Willow. But obviously she wasn't able to breastfeed, so we would have to stop that now. I tell her she can't be serious and thinking I'm giving her my baby, and she tells me to calm down. She's not asking for full custody, but she could provide a much calmer and stabler home, and that I could always visit. She said it's what she deserves. Marco pushed everyone out and made sure Willow and I were all right. Since then, I've been really weirded out and have been getting texts from my father saying I need to let Tammy prove herself as a good caregiver and Tammy has been sending loads of photos of the nursery she has made. Just to add so people don't get confused, I'm in Italy, but Tammy isn't. They had flown over here. Edit. To answer some common questions, my dad isn't actually on my birth certificate, so I think that limits his grandparents' rights claim. My mom is our nominated guardian for Willow. If anything happens to us, it's written in a will, and Willow goes to the daycare in the hospital we both work at. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That goes, beyond an entitled status to what is genuinely kind of frightening. To show up out of nowhere and without any previous conversation be like, of course we'll be taking the baby, but you can visit. That is, genuinely mentally unhinged behavior. It's disturbing and frightening, and I'm very happy that the nursery's there and you have things under control, because if you didn't, oh my God, get that stuff locked down. But holy cow, that is ridiculous. I'm sorry that Tammy's never been able to have a kid, but that's no reason to just expect to get your grandchild because of what you assume. That is unhinged behavior and terrifying. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my pregnant girlfriend because I don't want to be a father? I, 25 male, had been with my now ex-girlfriend, 23 female, for a little over 3 months. I always made sure we used lots of precaution when having intercourse. She was on birth control, and I always used condoms. I wanted to avoid a child. I've known for a long time that I do not want children. I find them annoying, and they would severely limit my ability to do the things I enjoy, traveling, outdoor stuff, etc. Unfortunately for me, my ex didn't have her period when she was supposed to, and it turns out she's now pregnant. She came to me and told me she was pregnant. The first thing I did was suggest an abortion. We don't live in a state where it's legal, so I offered to pay for her flight and hotel and told her I'd be happy to come with her to get it done. I have a stable job and make good money, so it wouldn't be too much of a hit for me. She works as a receptionist and doesn't make a lot, so I figured it would be better for me to pay. That's when she told me she was hoping to keep it and that she wanted me to help her raise the kid as its father. I have no intentions of being a father. Beyond just my dislike of children, I'm not ready for that. I made it very clear that I didn't want the baby, but she kept insisting that I'd have a change of heart once it's born and to just try it out. After a long exchange, I told her that if she intended to keep the baby, I would not act as a father. I broke up with her and told her that I would pay child support once it's born, but that I expect her to respect my wishes and keep the child away from me. Since then, she's been frantically texting me, begging me to come back, and telling me she'd forgive me. She sent me voicemails crying. It does hurt to see, but I haven't responded. The other day, she texted me saying how she can't raise the kid alone and how I'm basically forcing her to get the abortion just by leaving. She called me an a-hole, an abuser, and a sexist. She ended the text begging me to talk again. I certainly feel crappy. I really liked her, and we had a good relationship before this, but I just don't want to be a father. I'm already bitter about the fact that I'll have to pay child support for 18 years, which will somewhat limit me financially. I also feel it isn't right for a parent who doesn't want their child to be involved. I'd just end up taking that pent-up anger and bitterness out on the child who's ultimately innocent, which I feel isn't right. With all this said, I come here to ask, am I the a-hole? I certainly feel like one, but I also stand by what I did. Clarifying edits on the topic of a vasectomy, I tried. I met with a doctor last year and asked about getting one, but he refused and said every doctor he knows won't do it until you're at least 30. It's a conservative state, and while I dislike the politics, I was born and raised here, so I'm still attached to the state and have never felt the urge to leave. Someone said I should have flown elsewhere to get one, and I guess they're right, but I just didn't think about that. On the topic of birth control, I bought the condoms myself, so they were fine. Whenever we were done, I'd throw used condoms. I'm the dumpster, so I don't think she went dumpster diving. I asked her out on our first date if she was taking birth control, and she said yes. I took her word for it. Maybe foolish to just believe her, but if she was lying, she'd be the first I've met to lie about that. Most girls I've met are honest about it. I assumed she was on the pill since that's the main birth control I know, but maybe she was on something else that I'm not educated enough on. That being said, I'll follow your advice and lawyer up, plus get a paternity test. I don't know how long that will take, but whenever I get it done, I'll update here with results. Thank you for your judgments. I've been away for a bit, but I'm catching up and trying to read what I can. I'll be checking back periodically and replying to some people. All further feedback is appreciated. I do not believe that you are the a-hole in this situation, though it's not a great situation to be in. I mean, you did ask this person right off the bat, if they were on birth control. You used birth control, but of course, you all have to be aware that I don't think anything is 100% effective. And so it is very good in any relationship to make sure that you have those talks about kids and the future kind of early on. But boy, you're also only 3 months into that relationship, which is a whole nother layer to this. Like, to tell someone that you've been in a relationship with for 3 months that, yep, I'm pregnant and we're gonna have a kid and I want you to raise it with me, like, 3 months isn't enough to, I mean, for most people, maybe for some it is, but for the most part, that is not enough time to get to know someone and know if you want to raise a kid with them and have a life together. That's a huge commitment. And I think that you're in the right. You offered the abortion and she wants to have the kid, and you recognize that you're not father material. You don't want to have a kid, and that's very valid. And you've said you'd pay child support and all that. I think you did everything you could, and I think breaking up might be the right idea if you two have very different wants for your lives in the future. She obviously wants kids very badly, and you very clearly don't. So that's a pretty standout incompatibility right there. So yeah, I think you did probably the best that you could. Maybe there are a few things you could have done in hindsight, but that's always 2020. Story 2. My parents invited their friends on a family vacation, and now I don't want to go. This post will probably be long, and I'll try not to ramble too much, and hope that this point is easy to follow, but I'm not sure how to handle the situation at hand, so I need advice. For context, my parents are swingers. I found out about them being swingers right after I graduated high school in 2016. I've never really had an opinion on the matter until recently. I don't care what they do behind closed doors, but I personally don't want to see it in person. I'm sure that makes me sound like a bad person, but I've always accepted them for who they are. It's honestly just really weird to see my parents make out with other people when they're around a group of people. Anyway, they're in a relationship with another couple and have been with them for almost 2 years. They, being the other couple, just recently moved in with my parents because they lost their house and couldn't find another place in time. My parents kicked my sister, her fiance, and their baby out of the basement in order to give their friends the space and put my sister, her fiance, and baby upstairs in one bedroom to share, which is a small 12 by 12 room. The friends have also stated that they're another set of grandparents for my niece and call themselves Grandma, insert name, and Papa, insert name. My sister and her fiance are not comfortable with this, but my parents and their friends don't seem to care because they're all together as one. Now, on to the vacation. We were supposed to go on our first ever family vacation last year, October 2021, but it ended up getting pushed back to April of this year due to costs because of my wedding, which everyone was fine with. It then got pushed back again because my sister was in her 3rd trimester of her pregnancy and couldn't fly. It is now scheduled for February of 2023. My parents told my sister and I, along with our significant others, that they would be bringing their friends along on the vacation. And I'm frustrated about it, to be honest. With the way that they've been handling things with my sister and with all of their PDA, it's made me not want to go anywhere. It's our first ever family vacation, like I've already mentioned, and I wanted it to be just family. I'm at a loss, and I'm not sure how to handle the situation, and we don't want to upset my parents about how I and everyone else, my husband, sister, and brother-in-law, feel. Any advice? I don't know if I have advice necessarily. I would say that it sounds like your parents are less swingers, and I think the term is more your parents are polyamorous. Swingers, I think, kind of implies that they're just, part of groups that'll oh, we sleep with them, we sleep with them. This sounds like they're actually in a polyamorous relationship with this other couple. Something that I think is fine for some people. It's not personally something I would be comfortable with, but I have friends who are in polyamorous relationships, and they're wonderful. They're very, very lovely, but it is unusual, especially if you're, a lot of Western societies kind of find polyamory a little bit odd, but it is, I think, a very legitimate relationship structure, and it can be very healthy. It's just, something that you're really, really not used to. And while you feel that this, vacation is family only and stuff, I imagine that if you Like, if this family vacation was getting set up and you and your now, husband or whatever weren't married yet and were just like significant others or fiance or whatever, you would hope to bring them along because they're an important part of your life. They're basically family to you, except in, stamped government approved way. And I think that's maybe how your parents feel about this couple. They've been in a relationship with them for 2 years. They're all living together, and it sounds like, yeah, they're all part of this very non-traditional family structure. And so, but it's hard because, yeah, your kids, it's your parents, and it's strange for you. So I guess my best advice would be approach these things with an open mind and try to understand that this is probably something that is important to your parents and not just swinging and being around other people. This is a legitimate relationship for them. And so I would say open your mind a little bit, give it a try. I don't have all the details and your feelings are valid, but your parents' feelings are valid too. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter-in-law she wasn't invited due to her weight? We've done plenty of things that are not physically taxing with her, but even the small stuff, she ends up on a bench half the day. We went to a small mall, half the day on the bench. It was window shopping. She's obese, her ankles are swollen from her weight. The connection between her weight and not walking far without a break is very obvious. Post. I will try to keep this short. I have 3 girls, and we still like to do girl trips for the day. My son got married to a girl named Beth. Now, before her first kids, she was average weight, and after it got a lot worse. Her only kid is 8 years old at this point, and she hasn't lost weight. It's bad enough that she needs constant breaks walking. I used to like her, and now I don't due to how she acts. Everywhere we go with her is constantly complaining that she is tired. The last girl's trip to the mall was spent sitting on a bench half the day since she needed a constant break. If you try to leave, she'll go on about abandoning her. It's annoying. I invited the girls to go to a farm for a pumpkin patch and pick some apples. It has big orchards and a ton of walking. We had a great time and some pictures went on Facebook. I got a call from Beth asking why she wasn't invited. I lied, saying it was just a family trip, and she accused me of lying. I had enough and told her the truth. I told her she wasn't invited due to her weight, that she forces us to stop all the time and it ruins the trips most days since we don't get to do half the stuff. She called me a jerk and hung up. I'm getting texts from my son saying to apologize, but the girls are on my side and are sick of having trips ruined since we have to wait for her all the time. This is a rough one, and I don't have a great answer to this because I want to respect all body types, I have been, a bigger person before, and it is a struggle, and losing weight is a huge struggle, especially, I imagine, for someone after having a kid. That's even more so. But, at the same time, yeah, if you have a day trip that's going to involve a ton of walking and you don't think that she's going to enjoy it and is going to kind of slow down and hamper the trip, I can see why you wouldn't want to invite her, but at the same time though, it's your daughter-in-law. Don't you want her to be a part of things? I don't know. It sounds like you might have other issues with her too that maybe could do with some talking and stuff like that. I don't know. I really don't have an answer for this one, but yeah, it sounds like you've got some other issues with her, but I don't know. I really don't know what to say about this one. The folks get in the comments. Let me know exactly where you stand on this, because I'm at a loss. Story 2. Stepdad cheats on my mom, so we get revenge. Initials for clarity. Me, 24 male. My mother, 50 female. Mom. My brother, 23 male. Bro. My sister, 30 female. Sis. Cheating stepdad, 45 male. Chris, stepdad's coworker, 25 female. Betty, the other woman, about 40 female. Darla. This may be a long one. Apologies in advance. I moved in with my mom after her marriage of 25 years with my bio dad ended. He was a manipulative a-hole, but that's another story. Shortly after the divorce, my mom introduced me to her boyfriend at the time, Chris. Now, my mom works as a corrections officer at the county jail. The boyfriend was a former inmate for a DUI. That should have been the first red flag, but my mom was grieving a long marriage and I didn't want to push the subject. Chris seemed to make her happy and that was enough for me. Me, bro, and sis all moved in with mom and Chris and we seemed to get along okay. Chris and I bonded a bit over our love of video games and all seemed well. That is, until 2017. Due to Chris's prior DUI, driving under the influence, he had to go in regularly for probationary checkups at the courthouse. One day he didn't return and we got a little worried. Then we received a phone call from him from Texas. Turns out when he arrived at the courthouse that day, he was jumped by the FBI. His family from Texas was implicated in a number of gang and drug-related crimes, and due to a situation where he was in a vehicle during a drug handoff, he was on the hook as well. He ended up agreeing to testify against his family members in exchange for a shorter sentence and was allowed to be out of prison before the trial. My mom was distraught, and over the course of many phone calls over a year, they worked out their marriage plans when he returned. His store owner at the DQ he worked at allowed him to come back as well, back to his store manager position. Soon after, the drinking started. Now, obviously, because of his DUI, Chris was clearly no stranger to drinking. He began to drink more and more to the point where he was consuming half a 24-pack of beer a day. Chris was a mean drunk. He regularly started fights when wasted, and while they never got physical, he wasn't exactly kind with his words. My mom enabled his behavior for several years, saying the stress was getting to him from work and from the upcoming trial. Finally, after several years, my mom had enough. Chris came home extremely drunk one night, and my mom confronted him. She asked if he'd been drinking, and when he didn't deny it, she kicked him out. He went to live with a friend temporarily. The next morning, my mom asked us to help gather a few of his essentials so that he didn't have to re-enter the home until he was sober. While we were gathering his things, we heard a knock at the front door. We opened it to find Betty, one of Chris's coworkers and someone I went to high school with. She told my mom she had something important to share. After sitting my mom down and telling her not to share where she got the info from, Betty told my mom about how Chris was cheating on my mom with Darla, how he regularly had Darla perform intimate acts in and around his workplace, how Betty had caught them, and how Chris had told her that if she ever told my mom, he'd fire her, he was the store manager, and finally, how Darla was pregnant. My mom was angry. After the initial shock wore off, she told us to round up all of Chris's things and to dump it outside. We took everything out of the house and tossed it all in the alley behind our house. Chris had no reason or ability to return to the house. It was rented with only my mom on the paperwork, so no issues there. In the meantime, she called and confronted him. He confessed to the entire affair and that he was happy Darla was pregnant because that meant he'd finally have a child of his own. Mom refused to have more kids. We three were massive strains on her body. She likely wouldn't survive anymore. He refused to apologize for any of his actions. My mom arranged for him to collect his items from the alley with an officer present, and he left our lives. The revenge. Now, my mom clearly wanted to dust her hands off him and move on. She was already quite emotional from the whole ordeal and wanted nothing more from him, but Sis Bro and I had other ideas. First, we called his workplace. DQ operates as an independently owned franchise, and the owner of this branch owned several branches in the area. He was also a good friend. We informed him of the lewd acts being performed on the premises, and he went to the process of getting Chris booted from his position and barred him from any of the branches in the area. Funnily, Betty got his position after he left and now runs a tight and clean ship. Chris no longer had a job or a place to live, and so went to live with Darla in a town about an hour away. We found out that he started working at another DQ in that town and informed the owner of that location of the situation. It took significantly longer due to there being no current indecent actions occurring there, but eventually he lost that job too. Soon after, Chris began driving around our neighborhood, seemingly stalking my mom and our family, probably because of his job loss. Now, due to the whole situation in Texas, he never had his probation lifted for his DUI, and thus still did not have a license. He never had to drive when he lived with us, since work was local and we could drive him as needed. But here, he was clearly driving around by himself when he shouldn't be. We contacted the police and informed them about Darla's vehicle in our neighborhood and that we believed Chris was driving it without a license. We told them to pull over the vehicle next time they see it, as it would likely be C driving again. Sure enough, a few weeks later, we were told that Chris was indeed pulled over and sent back to the local jail for driving without a license and while intoxicated. The police also did a search of the home he was staying at and found several guns at the premises. Since he was a felon, he was not legally allowed to have weaponry on the premises, meaning there was more jail time tacked on. By the time his jail time had finished, it was just in time for him to be sent back to incarceration in Texas for the trial. Chris's son was born while Chris was in prison. Darla eventually realized what an absolute butt Chris was and cut ties with him while he was in prison. During his prison time, Chris started sending tons of letters to my mom stating how sorry he was, pleading to take him back, and ranting about how it wasn't his fault. All the same letter, mind you. Mom burnt every one of them. We moved on, moving out of state. Chris eventually got out of prison some years ago and now lives in Kansas, struggling and fighting child support, with which Darla sued him for. Mom now has a new boyfriend who treats her right and cares a lot more than Chris ever did. Bro and sis moved on and out, and I still live with my mom, assisting her with the newly purchased home that we've been renovating. Life's looking okay. I was reminded of this by a chat with a coworker about cheaters and thought to post it here for others to enjoy. Woo, I've heard plenty of stories of cheaters getting just what they deserve and it, being some pretty harsh revenge, but I gotta say, losing your job and the woman that you cheated with and going to jail might be one of the harshest revenges I've heard about, and yet, Chris, you kinda earned it, buddy. You kinda effed up real bad. Like, good grief. Just, and the letters pleading like, oh, it wasn't my fault, take me back. Like, really, Chris? You're gonna just be pathetic at the end of all of this? It's like, no. Learn that you made a mistake. Don't try and plead to get her back, because you have burned that bridge down entirely. You burned the bridge down and then started chipping away at the land on either side of the bridge just to make sure no bridges could ever be built again. You need to just take a real hard look at your life and the mistakes you've made, Chris, and just make actual genuine efforts to be a better person. That's all there is to it. And it's gonna be hard and take a lot of work because you dug yourself into such a hole. My gosh, cheaters are just always finding new ways to just sink to new lows. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for calling my fiance lazy for wanting to be a stay-at-home wife? I'm 42 male, am engaged to who I feel is the one, 33 female. We had been dating for just over 3 years, and I proposed last month. Last night, after another session of wedding planning, my fiance asked if I would be all right with her being a stay-at-home wife. At first, I laughed because I thought she was joking, but she was being very serious. She told me not to laugh and said she wants to be a stay-at-home wife. I asked her why, as we both make pretty good money in our jobs and we can't afford our current lifestyle with just one income. She says it's because I make a lot more, which is true. I make about 40% more than her, and we could just scale back our lifestyle, and said, it's been on my mind a lot. I think working 9 to 5 just isn't for me. I asked her if she was being serious, and she confirmed that she is. I said that I'm not comfortable with that idea and said maybe if we have kids, she could be a stay-at-home mom, but I'm not cool with her being a stay-at-home wife. And she said that I was being manipulative, since we're both child-free, but I just said that as a hypothetical, since I'm not at all okay with being the sole breadwinner. That divulged into a pretty heated argument with her saying that I should support her dreams. She never stated what she wants to do with her staying at home, even though I did ask. So this is where I may be the a-hole. In the heat of the moment, I said, where is this coming from? Why is it your dream to be a stay-at-home wife? Is it your dream to be lazy? She got really upset at that and had gone to her mother's and said, we'll talk more when you calm down. I'll be real here. I don't want her to be a stay-at-home wife. I'm not okay with being the sole breadwinner, and I do not wish to support this dream. I want a partner in life, not a dependent doing nothing productive with their days. Am I the a-hole? So, I don't think that there is anything inherently wrong with being a stay-at-home spouse. Oftentimes at homes, there's stuff to do around the house that if one of the people stays home, they can take care of, the cleaning and cooking and maintenance and stuff like that. And it's a big load off. It's kind of an exchange of duties. It's basically saying, hey, your day job is going out there and making money. My day job is taking care of the household and errands and all this other kind of stuff so that you never have to worry about that. And together we can be happy. And I think that's perfectly fine and valid. I think being dual income is valid, whatever. I think 2 people who just wanted to work 20 or 30 hours a week and live off of that. All of those are valid, but it's also a discussion that should be had, and both parties should be happy with that outcome. If this person wants to be a stay-at-home wife, A, that should maybe be a discussion that came up before wedding planning, but maybe it's also something she just realized. But B, she should also be understanding that this is a marriage, it's a partnership, and so it has to be something that both parties are happy with, not just, this is my dream to not work anymore. I mean, I think that's a lot of people's dreams. I think a lot of us would be like, I would love it if I don't have to work anymore. Like, what if he countered with, well, it's my dream not to work anymore. Why can't you be the one who works? Like, there has to be compromise and understanding. So I don't think you're an a-hole. I think maybe, in the moment of frustration, being like, is it your dream to be lazy? That might have been a step too far, but it also sounds like she was maybe a little unreasonable. So hopefully you can all talk this through and figure out just what it is each of you really wants. And hopefully that works out for you. Story 2. I've fallen in love with the husband of the woman my husband is cheating on me with. I'm 36 female and my husband 38 male. We have been together for 10 years. We have one daughter who's 6 female. She's everything. I found out a year ago that my husband is sleeping with his employee, 30 female. How? Her husband, let's call him Jay, 35 male, contacted me. He was heartbroken and he thought that I ought to know. He provided me with text messages and dated when they've been in hotels. I recognized my husband's style and I recognized the other woman. I've seen her on multiple occasions when I visited my husband at work. She'd been nothing but kind and pleasant towards me, and she always doted on my daughter. I asked Jay what he wanted to do, and he said that he wasn't sure yet, so I requested that we should meet. He agreed. I told him about my life and that I'm currently not working. After the pandemic, I lost my job, and now the economy, I haven't really had any opportunity to find a job. Instead, I've been studying these past 2 years. If I divorce now, I won't be able to provide for my daughter. That would probably put her in my husband's custody as a primary provider. I asked him if he could wait for a few months, hopefully longer, therefore, and to my surprise, he agreed. I thanked him profusely, but he told me that he didn't know what to do either, so he's happy to wait. Also, the other woman has 3 children from a previous relationship, and he was worried that she would refuse him being in their lives once he confronted her because he's not the father. We kept in touch, however. He called me a few times a week, and soon we started to talk about other things than our failed marriages. Afterwards, we started going for walks, coffees, movies, etc. I found myself thinking about him often with a smile on my face. He was the first thing I thought of in the morning and the last thing I thought of before going to bed. For the last 3 to 4 months, we probably mentioned our spouses once or twice. We talk about everything else, and he always makes me laugh. He thinks I'm funny too. 2 weeks ago, we were having a picnic, and he just blurted out, "I think that I'm in love with you." When he explained himself, it just drove the point home that I am in love with him. He said that at first he wasn't sure why he was feeling like this toward me and explained it away as 2 jilted people finding comfort in each other, but that he realized that he wasn't heartbroken anymore, that he even thinks of his wife's infidelity as a blessing because it leads him to me. That was exactly how I felt too. I didn't know what to say. I told him that I'm terrified that these are false feelings that would go away once we freed ourselves from those who hurt us. He just beamed at me and said he was willing to take the risk just to find out. He kissed my hand because I thought we were still married, and if we did something then, how were we better than our significant others? I don't know what to do now. I find myself daydreaming about him, about introducing him to my daughter, kiss him, wake up next to him every morning. I still have 1 semester left, and then I'm probably going to find a job. I've already had some offers for when I'm finished with my studies. I've thanked Jay so many times for being so patient with me about everything. I appreciate that he's waiting for me to put my life in order before we expose our spouses who aren't really seeing each other as often as they used to. He told me he's happy to help and he just wants a real kiss as a thank you when everything is over. My goal now is to secure my job and leave this marriage. Am I pathetic for wanting to give Jay and I a shot and see where it would go? Can 2 broken hearts really find happiness together when their love stories start like ours? Love stories can start in just about any way possible, I imagine. Okay, maybe not any way possible, but yeah, I think that those could be valid feelings, and maybe they aren't. But you know what? That's the risk with every relationship. Like, anytime you're dating someone and you think you might have feelings, maybe not. Maybe it's infatuation, maybe it's excitement, who knows? There are always reasons and to, question it, and it's always a risk. And I think that's fine. And I would say don't hold off on stuff too long. I don't know. It's just to have to put on a charade with each of your significant others and stuff seems like a lot to carry, and it might make things messier. and I know you're worried about custody and whatnot, but I don't know, with child support and stuff, maybe it wouldn't be that big a deal. I don't know enough about divorce and child custody stuff, but yeah, I say give it a shot. It seems like you've made a connection, and clearly neither of you is in a great relationship currently with your significant others, and I don't know, maybe it's not working out for your significant others and they'll be unhappy about it because they've seen each other less, but I don't know, maybe they just felt guilty and maybe you can all have a laugh about it and go out to dinner together after this. I don't know, maybe it is a blessing in disguise. I hope it is. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for blowing up on my son's girlfriend? My husband thinks I'm right, but my niece helped me make this post here to see what other people think. I, 52 female, have 3 sons ranging from 13 to 20. My oldest son, 20 male, has a girlfriend, 19 female, that hangs around our house a lot. It's a really small house and doesn't have a lot of space. She's a nice girl, but gets on my nerves sometimes because she's always over. I really don't think she's right for my son either. Our tap water has a weird aftertaste, so I order gallon water bottles and use them to refill a big glass bowl with a tap. It is not cheap to get water and other groceries delivered, so I tell my son's husband and the girlfriend to be courteous of other people who live here and not use up the water, as it runs out fast in our big household. Yesterday, I caught her filling up her big metal water bottle with the jug water, and I calmly told her that other people live here too, and she shouldn't hog the water all to herself. She was rather short with me and said something along the lines of, actually, this water bottle is big enough to hold all the water someone should be drinking in a day. I'm not hogging water, I'm just trying to stay hydrated. I found her tone to be disrespectful and ordered her to leave. She scoffed and went back to my son's room. That's when I got frustrated. I opened their door and told her she had to leave. My son got really angry with me and told me that my girlfriend didn't do anything wrong and why is it a crime for her to drink water? I explained that I order this water for our family to use, not leeches who hang around all day rent-free. My son's girlfriend got a little teary-eyed and left the room and out the front door without saying anything. My son told me I was a major a-hole and should have just minded my business. I think she's just wasteful and a brat. Am I the a-hole? Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm sorry, but if this is your son's girlfriend, someone important in her life, then she's kind of family too. And it seems like you've got a grudge against her. Like, you've already said, like, I don't like her. She's not good enough for my son. So already you come across as just, having an axe to grind with her. And I don't know. I get that water's not the cheapest. It really sounds like you should maybe invest in a better system, though that does cost money, and I get that. I do. Yeah, I think there are better ways that both sides could have handled that situation. And, kicking her out and saying that she's a leech who hangs around rent-free, all this stuff. I don't know. You're just, I don't know the whole situation. I don't know everything about her, but all that you've told me about her is you saw her filling up some water and thought that she maybe sounded snarky. I don't know, but it seems like you're pretty dead set against her no matter what. So maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Yeah, but the way it reads, at least to me, from the information I have, I'd say you're at least a little bit the a-hole. Story 2. I don't think my oldest daughter is mine, and it's killing me. I already know that this is a terrible thing to think about, but it's been on and off in my mind for the past year, so I guess I'll give context to it all. This is a long one, just to warn y'all. Me, 32 male, and my ex-wife, 32 female, were together for 10 years before I ended the marriage due to verbal and emotional abuse. During those years, we had 2 children, both girls that I love with all my heart. L, 10 female, is our oldest that we had towards the beginning of our marriage, while R, 8 female, was midway through. I have absolutely no doubts in my mind that R is mine. She is nearly a carbon copy of me in every way, olive skin, curly jet black hair, etc. L, however, is a bit of a different story. She's a lot like her mother and shares a lot of her features except for 2 things: general face structure and blonde hair. Now for some backstory on why that's a red flag for me, is because when we went to community college together, she had a friend, 31 male, she would always hang out with him, almost as much as me and her would hang out. He has blonde hair and their noses eerily line up. Now my ex and her friend met after our first year of marriage. We got married really young, which was a stupid decision, but besides the fact. Perhaps this is just me being jealous, but they were nearly inseparable. Even after we left college, he would drive out great lengths to come see us, but usually when I was at work. About a little less than 3 years into our marriage, we were set to leave for another state for me to finish my degree. We were all set to leave, and then she got pregnant, somewhat of a surprise to me, but I was too excited about being a father to care. Eventually, her friend got married as well, and he stopped coming over. With one exception, he would always make it a point to come to Elle's birthday. Now, this friend already has a kid of his own, 1.5 years older than Elle, and would bring him to the party. When I tell you that these two looked nearly identical, that doesn't even begin to describe it. Eventually, these two became the same body build, hair color, and face and nose shape. Everyone would mistake them as siblings. That's when these thoughts first got into my head. A few years later, we eventually had R, and I wanted to try to move again so I could finally finish my degree. Also at this time, my ex's friend had also recently got married to his new girlfriend, while my ex hated always saying he didn't seem to be a right fit for him. After great resistance from her, we finally moved to another state. Things quickly unraveled in our relationship, and we divorced. Not how I imagined things going, but that is life. They moved back to her family, and coincidentally, her friend immediately divorced when they returned. Then, soon after that, the both of them started dating and then married. I'm happy for them, I really am, but when I went to visit them for the summer, Elle asked me if she could take her stepdad's last name, which really hurt, but if it was what she truly wanted, I wasn't going to deny her that. R wanted to keep her last name as it makes her feel closer to me. Then, the thing that really set me off. For some reason, we were all joking about no more kids, even though Elle wants another sibling, and she was so sad she would never get one. Me and my current significant other had been thinking of having a kid, so I told her as much. She wasn't really amused, saying that she meant for her mom and her stepdad, because a baby from me wouldn't really be their sibling like her mom and her stepdad's. Her mom quickly interjected, saying that would be the case for them too, as they would only be half-siblings. It felt very forced, and now that I'm back home, it's all I can think about. I haven't really talked with my eldest for the past week and a half because of it. I don't want to be thinking this. I don't want to believe my ex would have done that. She did a lot of things during our marriage, but I would never in a million years think of her as a cheater, but now it's all I can think about. I couldn't keep this one to myself. I need to know if I sound crazy or not. So, it's entirely possible that biologically she isn't yours. But this is where my brain always says, like, she's 10 years old. You've been her father for 10 years, and that makes you her dad. She is your kid. You have, invested that time, that connection, all of that kind of stuff, and blood doesn't matter. But at the same time, it also kind of seems like if she isn't, it almost seems like her mom and stepdad let her in on that little secret. Maybe? Like, I can see where it kind of sounds like that from at least how it's being described. And then that makes it feel like, does she consider you a father, or has she written you off or something? I don't know. It's weird. The most I can just say though is, you know what? Just treat her like your daughter, because she is. You raised her. You've imparted, a part of yourself onto her just by being there for her, being her dad. And, whether or not there's blood there or not, I don't know. Unless, she insists on it or something more comes up, I would personally just leave it and just know in my heart that, no, that is your daughter. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for asking my coworker what would happen if I drank her breast milk? My 20 female coworker Kate had a baby a little while ago, and in the break room during lunch yesterday, she was talking about breastfeeding. During the conversation, I asked Kate, "Hey, so what would happen if I were to drink your breast milk?" Kate said, "Excuse me?" I did realize that it sounded like a weird question when you didn't hear the train of thought leading up to it, so I tried to explain myself and said, is it okay because your baby is related to you, but I get sick because I don't have your same bacteria? Kate didn't answer me, but our other coworker Lauren then said, well, it can't be that that's how it works, because then wet nurses wouldn't have been a thing. I'd never heard of a wet nurse and asked Lauren, what's that? Lauren said, it's when you hire a nanny who had a baby at the same time as you so that she can also breastfeed your baby for you, but it's like an old-timey thing. So at this point, Kate said, you guys are being D's, and left. I found out today that she's telling people that me and Lauren were making fun of her about breastfeeding. So I do understand why Kate would have been uncomfortable with the first way I asked the question, because yes, that was kind of a stupid way to say it, but I don't really understand how she thinks I was making fun of her at all after that. Am I the a-hole? You're not an a-hole. No, absolutely not. Are you... Do you maybe need to work on social interactions when it's in regard to more private parts of people's bodies and stuff like that? Perhaps. That would be very shocking to just suddenly hear, like, what would happen if I drank your breast milk? Like, that's the kind of question that you expect to hear from a total creeper. So, weird question to just throw at somebody, but I do understand your line of thinking, because if anyone's confused, a lot of babies gain some of, like, their immune system is helped by breast milk because they get immunities or something from the mom. I don't know. It helps inoculate them or something. I don't know all the medical terms. I'm not a specialist on this, but that is where this line of thinking is coming from. So I totally get it, but definitely, like, have some preamble leading up to it. As far as her saying that you guys are being, jerks about this and are making fun of her, I mean, I would just confront her and say, I'm really sorry. It was just a weird science question. I'm not trying to make fun of you whatsoever. It was weird, and I blurted it out in a dumb way. Just talk to the person. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.